believe it's working. Well, let's start off with some things first. I'm Opti and I'm gonna explain to you how to use extends because no one apparently understands. So let me grab a few things real quick. First things first, you wanna forget everything about prompting, styles. It doesn't really matter to use Suno. All you need to find is your perfect little instrumental to continue from. What do you want to make? That's actually the first thing you wanna figure out. What is most important? For instance, I wanna have a start. I wanna have a peak in my instrumentals. I wanna have a little spoken word segment and then return back to those instrumentals. No one is able to prompt this. At least not if this instrumental is a metal bit and this one is pop with a little bit of piano or something. As you can tell, I know jack shit about music. Also, what are the things you want to have? Let's say specific themes, sounds, non-musical parts, the composition like I just told you right here. What do you want? Not what type of music, not A minor or... I don't even know the notes, that's the issue, so I can't even make a joke about what people want if I don't know what I'm talking about, now do I? But I do know extents, so let's start with a few things. Do you need to think and explain a few things? You want something rocky first, so you start generating your little song. So this is your song right here, this bad boy. This is all rock. Now, for your first part, let's call it like that. So when you press create, so we're prompt, and this comes out. This is, let's say, 4 minutes. That's the going standard right now. Well, we have this, but you also want something else. What I advise people to do is, what do you want first? Generate that first. Then, once you have something you're happy with, you want to add or build up on. That's where we start extending. Extending isn't necessarily meant to extend your song. It is to intervene with what Suno is making. So, let's say I really like this part right here. But from here on, this is all trash. All of this is trash. You don't want this. It's all wacky and glitchy and all of that. But that first bit is just perfect. You want to keep that. So what you do is you press extend on this one and you set your timestamp right here. Now this is where the fun comes. So what we do is we press extend and we put our timestamp right here. Let's say 0016 is often a common one for me. So you set all of that up. What you have to keep in mind is it will see this bit. It will forget all of this. It will only see this little thing. What do you want to introduce? Let's say, I don't know, yeah, for me it's always dubstep. So you do your little prompts, your little styles, whatever the hell you want. Done. You press generate, 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 and you get a bunch of different things, and you found another one. Ooh! 4 seconds, perfect. Just 4 seconds, but it's enough. So this is our part 2. Right here. You have a bunch of extras right here, but this one is the perfect one, or at least it has a useful little bit. The thing is, I'll make my mark up till here. This is what we want to keep. What you want to do, what you want to think about now is, do I need this bit to be attached to this to then extend further? Or do you want to stray away from this, only use this, and continue on with your generations, take it into a different area? Once again, you extend from it. So another line, we'll call this 0004. And I'll grab another color. This is your third part. It's a bit dark, I'm sorry for that. I hope it clears up a little bit. But One thing to keep in mind if you do not go back to whole, and we'll discuss that later. Right now, this is called part 2. This will be called part 3. This one went to dubstep, that one was rock. But it will still sound a little bit rocky. But if you then, for your part 3 right here, lean more into the dubstep, for instance, it only has these 4 seconds of context to play with. So we'll only reuse this bit for your part 3. What this means is that it doesn't see these 16 seconds. So it is way easier to start changing from one genre to another to, for instance, this was a silent part, and infuse vocals into it, start your other vocal for your duet, start your ad-lib. This is extending in its most basic form. Using this whole idea of it not seeing your initial part, it only seeing part 2, you can start to influence in this extend what this one will result in. Go from a choir, and you want to already lean a little bit into rock, but it doesn't work just yet. Just extend another time from your part 2. Go to part 3. Now there's another trick. One piece of advice is to always remember a little bit about the timestamps. Not too much, there are tricks for that as well. So let's go back. Let's say I got something cool for my part 3, but from, let's say, around 004 again, this part just doesn't sound like it should. It doesn't reflect what's in here. It still takes a little bit from here, but it's going off the rockers. What you do now is you go right click or 3 little dots. You click edit, and then you go to whole song. This will produce a new, let's say, initial full song. Now I'm gonna grab my colors again because we're gonna need them. This is what's left of part 1. I'm gonna make them a little bit bigger. For our 4 little seconds, there we go. And that one we haven't touched yet with the part 4. So this in its entirety will be glued to the back of this. Whoosh, all of this. This is now all your context. This is what your next extension, if you're gonna do it from your full song, it will see all of this. Best rule of thumb is context window. I always take 2 to 3 minutes or so. I've seen it do some wacky stuff with longer stuff, but let's not try and complicate things. Just keep this in mind. Now, but what did I say earlier is after those 4 seconds, part 3 goes totally in a different direction. So this is one of my tricks. I'm not gonna teach you everything, I know. I'll just quickly make a little bit of a line. So, there we go. So it's a bit clearer. This is your full song. There we go. But like I said, from this point forward, this is nothing. This is weird. We don't want that. But now that we have a full, if we now extend from this part, a new one, going back to orange again because I only have 3 colors. So there we go. This extension, depending on what you put in your styles and your prompts, of course, I'd recommend a fusion of all the 3 parts thus far, so you get more of a fusion going, but you can do whatever the hell you want with it. This will take parts from what it sees right here. All of this in context, it will try and reuse it. If there's a vocal sample in there and you use a tag that represents a vocal, for instance female, chorus, verse, vocal breakdown, if something looks from a machine's point of view as if that correlates with that tag in there, it will, or at least sometimes, reuse it again. Even if you don't prompt any of the lyrics, something totally different. You often read it in the discords as well. Why does it keep doing this? Why does it keep repeating stuff? It's because of your tags. Use something different. But knowing this, all of these steps are now in context. If you now extend from this little bit right here, it will make a way more cohesive part for this bit. There are still instances where you want to go overboard again. So, once again, we can go back to what we just did here. Let's say this time at right here. finding these things, like where did part 3 start and where did part 2 end. You just gotta do it by ear. Generally, the time your last part gets, if you deduct that from your whole, you will always find the starting point. So let's say this one was 2 minutes and it started at 16 here, 20, so the whole will be 220. What you then do is you just subtract the 2 at roughly around 0020 within your full starts this part. This starts roughly at 20. But back to this. This will now take everything from here in context. And now you can do just the exact same thing over and over and over again. You can also go to a part 4, part 5, part 6, part 7, part 8. It doesn't matter. As long as you keep in mind, it only sees the previous. It only sees what you timestamp from. This is possible with a free account. It will take a few steps, like 2 of these part chains are enough to fill out your free plan for the day. But that should net you at least a minute of a song, rather than having to spin the old generator just hoping to get the right thing you want. Oh, for paid users, if this switch is a bit too drastic, you'll notice that in beginners I still have it occasionally, like right here. This change right here, this bit, can feel very sudden. So what you do, your full song, is you go to edit and replace, and you make your section align right here. Right here. This is a weird instant transition, but if you replace over it and use a few funky styles, try and mix and match it a little, you don't need many tags or much else, as long as it's instrumental. 9 out of 10 times the replace will do the work for you. It will, instead of it changing like that, it will make it more like that, if you catch my drift. It will smoothen it out. It's not perfect, but it'll do it. For this one, like I said, you can still do the same trick. You can extend it over and over and over and over again, but it will never see what's behind the part you extend from. It's something to keep in mind, and it is what I abuse in my songs. If you can put things in view or things out of view, that's a whole lot more control than hoping that your prompt will do exactly what you want. There we go, new little paper. I often get the question, how did you do this? How did you do that? One big example is me being able to trigger monster breathing back into a song. So I'm just gonna do a little illustration once again. Let's say air horn. Nice. It goes meh, and I extend from here and I start building my little song. I'll make a few little things. There we go. So this is full 4/1. This is 2, 3, 4. This one turns into dance, dance, dub, step, drop, dub, drop. Now, we're going back to whole or whatever, but this is the part we want to bring that air horn back. Like, at that point we want to bring our air horn back. So let me quickly grab this thing right here. I'll try and remake the whole thing again. There we go. It looks like shit, but you probably know what I mean. I'll draw a few little lines. This one is right there. This one is right there. This one's right there. This one's right there. Now you want to re-trigger air horn. Normally, it's tags like air horn, like this, air horn, will never work, or at least it won't produce the raid sirens or whatever else. But now that you have everything in the context, so we're gonna extend from right here. That one shouldn't be there. The first thing I do on my first line is a dash. Then I try influencing a few things, let's say instrumental, and lyrics, then another bit. And then the trick is, if Suno doesn't know what it's supposed to sound like, it will grab something from its training data. So as long as you have interesting sounds in your context, like this will become its own extension later on. As long as you reference to things in your song through tags, through styles, whatever else there is, it will reference back to it. So this will more than likely grab a sample from which that already sounds like an air horn within this context. There would just happen to be an air horn right in there. So for this little segment right here, it will grab it from there 9 out of 10 times. Sometimes it will think it will make up its own horn. This is essentially how I got monster breathing to return, Gregorian chants to make a comeback within heavy electronic music, which a lot of people don't seem to be able to manage. This is my entire process. I think in parts. I never think in a whole, or I want my song to sound like this when a guitar comes right before things start singing. No, a lot of that bullshit you can leave to Suno. This is how you can still have control over what the AI does, not through prompts. Prompts will have an effect, of course. It will not make dubstep on its own without a prompt. But how you get there doesn't really matter, because it will only refer back to context. Well, it will not only refer back to context, but playing around with what it can see and what you cannot see. For instance, 3 cannot see the air horn, so you're not afraid that the air horn will repeat. In here, it will repeat. But if you keep your context short enough, you listen and not include it, it will never make an appearance in part 3. Part 4 will never grab something from part 2. For instance, maybe there's a weird little in there, and it doesn't make a return in here. It will also not make a return in here. However, it might make a return in here. I hope this makes it a lot easier to see what people mean when you put something in context, how you use extends. There is one issue: cover and replace do not work like that. They do work like that. And grab one more paper. These things are expensive, by the way. Okay, we're gonna go back again. This is for y'all paid motherfuckers out there. Replace is one tool. Crop doesn't really matter in this instance because everyone knows what crop does. Cover. These all use context in a different manner than extend, so I'll just quickly cover them. Persona. I hate those things, but let's do them as well. I'm gonna draw my funky little colors again. For replace, I don't need to draw another one. For cover, I do. And for persona, I do. There we go. I'm not gonna color them in this time because it's just gonna cost me ink. Place, let's say you want it from here to here. The thing is, unlike extend, replace will see this. And we'll see this. I'm not entirely sure if it sees this though, so I don't know about that. Once you start prompting for replace, keep in mind that it wants to knit these two together, these parts. So whatever you prompt in there, it will try to fuse or make the bridge, this bridge right here, it's more of a bridge than anything. It will try to create that. So let's say with all my previous babbling, you made a very steep change right here, and this is all dubstep, and this is all piano. There we go. It will attempt to form a bridge here. Even if this is an ugly transition right here, it will try to smoothen things over. I do recommend, if you use replace, try to involve both, a few styles from this and from this. I don't use it for lyrics because for some reason both replace, cover and persona have a different method of producing vocals. It always sounds different than your general extension methods. Cover. What cover does is it basically grabs a song and it slaps it into context, much like a part, but it will never show up again. So what it does, it according to your prompt and whatever magic you're gonna do with it, I don't care. It will try to use parts from cover. It sees it. See it as a second training data, a second file to look into. So whatever you cover from, and it can be very drastic, but it will always have hints. It takes that basically as a starting point for like an extension, for instance, if you start to think how I think. And without shoving it anywhere in there, it will still refer back to it when it's generating to see what parts can I grab from it, what sounds, etc, etc, etc. Now the fine tunes might impact it more based on vocals, vibes, sound or instruments. I don't know about that, but how it works, I'm starting to understand. Persona is literally the same as cover. These two function the exact same way in what it does in the background. Like it takes, this is your persona, and it basically uses that as a second training data. So here's training data. It fuses both of these as like its own little instance. And it uses that to create the next one. At least that's how I see it. That's how I've been able to wrap my head around how it's useful. Now this one apparently is better at vocals. This one is better at style, apparently. But if you divert strongly enough from either of those, you will just get random generations. At least there's nothing of this left over or this left over when this is eventually finished. Another thing you can do with replace, which I shouldn't forget, is what if you have a little section you want to be bigger? Little instrumental bridge that's only 6 seconds. What you do is, let's say this is now 6 seconds. Then within your settings, you're gonna uncheck match the selection or whatever it's called, and you're gonna write out the entire prompt for your instrumental bridge that you do want to have. It will start growing. We'll start generating parts. So let me find a little bit of some colors. So there we go. There. These are the choices you have. So let's say this one is 20, that one's 40, that one's 10, that one's 34, that one's 22. Now you can choose how large you want your bridge to be, or your whatever, your solo, your drop, and you just select those. Select, for instance, that one, and this area will now grow to 20 seconds. So your entire thing, if it was normally 2 minutes, it will turn into 420. And I think that that's everything. I have nothing else. Grab one last paper. So, now, I want to tell you one more thing. You are not generating music. This I mean. With that I mean you are telling something, in this case, Suno. You are telling something, Suno, what to do. From its perspective, it's never wrong. It's never... And I still stand by all of this that I just said. If Suno doesn't understand your intentions, you are conveying it wrong. Your prompts are not perfect. It's not a 100% thing. If it goes wrong, it's miscommunication. There we go. What I'm trying to say with all of this is, if something doesn't work, it is insanity to keep doing the same things over and over again. There are so many methods to get where you want with Suno. It's insane to keep spinning the wheel over and over and over again. If you use everything that I just told you about extensions, you find your perfect first few seconds. It will take you 10 spins at most to find something interesting. Then you start extending and adding the stuff that it initially didn't have. After a while, there's enough in context that Suno will understand what you mean with everything. Not every style combo is easy to understand what it actually means. Not every prompt combo makes it easy to understand what you mean. Perhaps you get consistent results, but I don't think that's perfect. I think if something doesn't work to get to the desired result that you want, try something else. Suno is trained to make music and it's darn good at it, and I'm gonna stand by this. It's your fault and it's not Suno's fault. But I hope you learned something, and I hope you understand how I think about extends. The only way to actually control Suno. Well, there we go. And have a good day, I guess.